Hello, Bismillah, and welcome back to Peace Only Podcast, where we take you inside the lives of our volunteers. I'm your host, Franco Latona. This week, we're talking with health volunteer Jordan about one of the most meaningful projects she has done during her service. She used what is perhaps a Peace Corps volunteer's greatest asset, local language, to improve the health of people in her village. Jordan lives in a small village in northern Senegal.
It's completely Pulaar.
The northern region's proximity to the Sahara Desert makes it difficult to grow crops. Therefore, the main source of income is animal husbandry.
Raising sheep, cows, and goats.
Jordan says that because the people are semi-nomadic herders, all of the compounds in her village are spread out from each other.
And also from structures like health huts and schools, which makes access to them really difficult.
This means there are few educational opportunities in the area. For those who do attend school, all subjects are taught in French, the national language here in Senegal. In general, a child who studies through high school would be fluent in French. And there are some kids in Jordan's area who do that, but
there are also children who don't, because either they live in compounds that are too far away from the school to reasonably be able to attend, or their parents are uneducated, the entire rest of the family is uneducated, and they don't always understand the importance of having an education.
And for women and girls, it's even worse. Not only because of the reasons mentioned, but
also in Pulaar community, herder communities in our area, a big problem is that girls are often married at 15 years old or in many cases younger.
Now, as a health volunteer, Jordan is particularly interested in helping pregnant women and mothers with small children. She works closely with health workers employed by the health post near her village. Early on in her service, Jordan noticed little booklets being handed out by local health workers to expecting mothers and women with small children. This is common throughout Senegal.
These books are provided by, I think it's a partnership between the Senegalese government and then foreign aid agencies from a bunch of countries. So you'll see the logos for like USAID and then Canada and then the European Union.
And in these booklets,
there's information about vaccinations for the mother, information about prenatal consultations, but also information recording the status of the baby at birth and postnatal visits.
And also information about how mothers can keep their babies healthy,
so that the child is healthy until age 2, age 5, etc.
The problem is, Jordan says, these booklets are written entirely in French and given to people with limited access to education. If women have questions about the content, they are likely to ask local health workers for clarification.
Almost all of the health workers in this area, they are community-based. They are selected by other members of the community as people they trust to be gatekeepers of health information.
But Jordan says these local health workers, too, often have limited education.
And so it's very difficult for health workers to have candid conversations about health information when they can only understand the pictures in the book.
And this can lead to misinformation. For example,
one of my health workers sincerely believed that brushing one's teeth with toothpaste will cause their teeth to fall out.
Jordan says that when she heard this, she was a little upset.
It really struck me to see how little of the information in this booklet that even people who are supposed to be trusted, but they were able to keep so little of that information in their own minds. And so how are they then able to be the advocates for their communities?
Now, Jordan has been learning and speaking Pulaar since she arrived in her village. Indeed, all volunteers here at Peace Corps Senegal learn their village's local language extensively during their first couple months of training. And not just speaking, volunteers actually learn to read and write in these languages.
We prefer that they speak local language. I mean, language is a window into culture.
That's Victoria Fletcher.
I am the Deputy Director of Training and Staff Development at Peace Corps Senegal.
Victoria says the benefits of volunteers learning local languages are not just cultural.
There is a direct correlation, I think, between your language progression and your ability to immerse in your community and your ability to be productive at a professional level as well.
And it's not just Peace Corps volunteers who are learning to read and write in local Senegalese languages. Jordan says that several nonprofits in the area have been working extensively to promote Pulaar literacy. And because of their efforts,
almost every Pulaar-speaking health worker in the entire region is able to read and write in Pulaar.
That is,
in their native language.
As a result of these classes, Jordan says 2 of the local health workers who attended began conducting their own literacy classes in Jordan's village.
And the goal of this program is to promote literacy education among women between the ages of 14 and 25.
This gave Jordan an idea.
And I realized, oh my goodness, so they're developing this skill among people, many of whom have never set foot in a classroom before this. This class is giving them the tools to be able to understand and process information in a way that they could never have conceived before.
The only problem being that
after these classes, there was little reading material. These literacy efforts, in Pulaar at least, are sort of in their more early stages where there aren't that many resources written in this language to be able to make use of this skill after the classes are over.
So Jordan thought that translating the vaccination book
would be a great opportunity to promote positive health behaviors, but from within the community, taking advantage of a skill that the community chose to develop itself without any outside intervention.
With that in mind, Jordan got to work.
Kosam endu ina labi, ina wara vitaminu jifof, satawa wulani yobubani. Tumtaki kosam endu buri mo ide egondam.
Translating a vaccination book is no small task. It's very time-consuming. Jordan says she didn't want to work alone in her hut because, as volunteers here know, Senegalese locals value spending time together. So,
I would always take my notebook and the original French copy of the book to someone else's house.
Jordan worked on her translations while sitting with whoever happened to be home at the time.
And they would inevitably ask me, "What are you working on?"
So Jordan would explain to them what she was doing, why it's important,
and maybe go into the particular page that I was working on at that moment.
And in that way, it turned out to be
a mini home visit.
Yeah, a mini home visit. Several months later, with help from local health workers, Jordan finished her translations. She wanted to print and distribute her translated booklets to health posts in the surrounding area. So she wrote a grant through Peace Corps Senegal that covered printing costs as well as a training for health workers in the area. Now, the training Jordan organized is what's known here at Peace Corps Senegal as a training of trainers, and it's utilized by volunteers across sectors.
Community members are invited to learn more about a subject.
Then, they're instructed to go back to their own villages
and lead their own talks and discussions on what they learned at the training.
It promotes teaching and learning amongst local community members, which in turn supports Peace Corps' mission of sustainability. So, with the help of her local health workers, Jordan conducted a training of trainers at the local health post and distributed about 150 copies of the vaccination booklets to health workers, pregnant women, and mothers with young children. I asked Jordan if she's gotten any feedback about the vaccination booklets, or if she has heard about any positive outcomes so far.
So 3 months after the original training, I was in my market village, which was one of the villages whose health workers were invited to the training. And one of the health workers there approached me with a story.
He said he had been working at his local health post and witnessed a conversation between 2 women.
One of whom was holding a baby of about 5 months old. And the baby was crying and crying and crying.
So the mother was attempting to give her baby water in order to calm her down.
Which, per the information in the booklet and just good practice, you really should not be giving babies water,
but rather breast milk exclusively,
until they've reached 6 months or more. So the second woman sees this mother trying to give this baby water and says, "Whoa, please don't do that. You should not be doing that, because I went to this training in our village where they handed out these books, these translated health books, and so I read it until I understood it, and in there it explains that giving water to a baby under 6 months old is really dangerous.
how did that make you feel when you heard that story?
I couldn't believe it. One of the things that they tell you about Peace Corps is that a lot of the impact that you make is more long-term, that it's really difficult to see the impact of your work within the 2 years that you're there. And so to have worked on a project where the impact has apparently been so immediate, that made me feel that I had really done something worthwhile. And even if that was the only conversation that resulted from this project, it was still worth doing.
Jordan says her work isn't finished. She says she's currently having discussions with local officials to work out a plan for distributing the vaccination booklets in the entire district, one health post at a time. In addition, Jordan recently learned about a local women's group who are planning to start a community garden in her village. So,
I have been translating a gardening manual, a pocket gardening manual that is a resource provided by Peace Corps to agriculture volunteers.
with a little something extra.
But I'm also adding in there, which wasn't necessarily in there before, important nutrition information.
If it's anything like the vaccination booklets, we know it will be a great success. Thank you, Jordan, for sharing your story. And thank you for listening. I'm your host, Franco Latona. Babenen, Ngongo, à la prochaine. Until next time, Inshallah.